Well, hello there everyone, it's Nina Marie. Thanks for joining me today for another video. We're going to be creating with Simon Says Stamp's new Happy Camper release, and as part of the release there is a special blog hop going on which features many different designers who are participating and sharing inspiration using the new release. So in addition to the blog hop, which is in my opinion very inspiring, there's a lot of great ideas that are always shared during blog hops, but there is also a free gift offer that Simon Says Stamp is offering this weekend only. So you can get the Sunflower Dance stamp set free with any purchase of Happy Camper release products. This is a really cute stamp set and it's not yet available, so you can only get it as a free gift, which is really cool. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing 3 ways to use the Festive series from Simon Says Stamp. The Festive series is the Festive Bough pattern and also the Festive Swag stencil sets. These are 2 stencil sets that I designed and I'm really excited to share them with you and show you different ways that you can mix and match colors and also create different style projects. So in today's video, we're going to make 2 cards and a tag. Here I have the 2 stencil sets and then also a die set that I designed for the Happy Camper release too. So we have the Festive Swag stencil set. This is a series of 5 stencils that layer together to create a beautiful swag pattern that fits really nicely on an A2 card. There is a coordinating die that I created as well to be able to cut out the Festive Swag, and I'm just using a piece of cardstock here to show you the sizing of this Festive Swag. So you can see it fits really nicely, not only on a landscape, but also a portrait card too. Now when it comes to the Festive Bough pattern, this is 4 layering stencils that allow you to build a background of that same design, but it's on a smaller scale so it fits on a background really nicely so you can use it to fill an A2 card. Another product that I'll be using today is the Modern Teardrops die set, and this is another product that I designed for Happy Camper collection. And what's different about this teardrop shape versus other teardrops that you may have seen in the past is that this one has a little notch in the corners, which makes the shape a bit more unique. So I hope you like the products that I've created for this collection. I'm going to work on my stenciling to start. I'm going to bring in my Simon Says Stamp Craft Tacky Mat. This is the 9x12 size, so it is great for stenciling and holding other products in place such as your ink pads, but also the Simon Says Stamp Stamp and Stencil mat. I'm using this mat on top of the Craft Tacky Mat because it has guides, and so that's really helpful for lining up layering stencils such as the Festive Bough pattern. I'm going to line up my cardstock within the teal box. That's an A2 size guide. So my cardstock's going to fit perfectly in that place, and then the tackiness of the Stamp and Stencil mat will hold the paper down. Then I'm going to lay one of the stencils from the Festive Bough pattern on top. To make sure that you know which side is front, there are etching areas on the stencil to allow you to know which side of the stencil is facing forward. That's important when you're building a layering stencil design. So we're going to layer up our stencils within the black box on the Stamp and Stencil mat. And then that way we know everything's going to be in the right place. I'm picking out some fun ink colors from Simon Says Stamp's Positively Saturated Ink collection. And if you notice, I have 3 colors, but there are 4 stencils. And there is a reason for that. So see this bow layer? This one is going to be the last stencil I'll work with today for this background. I want to use this to create a glittery finish on the bows, so I will add paste onto this layer instead of ink. That's why I've only chosen 3 shades of ink for this 4-layer stencil. So let's start with that ink blending. I've picked out Cabbage. This is a classic green color, and I'm using a Simon Says Stamp small blending brush to help me color in the leaves of this stencil. If you wanted to, you could get extra fussy and color in the holly leaves different from the larger green sprig-like leaves, but I'm just going to color them all with the same shade of green. Once I've added that first layer of stenciling down, I'm going to bring in the next one, and this is the pine boughs. So this one's going to get layered up right inside of that same black box that we used for the first stencil, and so that's going to make sure that the pattern is built in the same place so that everything will work together. I'm using Juniper, which is a brand new ink color from Simon Says Stamp. It's a perfect pine needle green. I love this one. So I'm going to color all of the pine boughs with this shade. I'll remove the stencil and we're going to move on to the berries. The berries are going to fit really nicely in between all of our greenery, and then there's just enough space left over for the bows. For the berries, I'm going to pick out cranberry. It's a perfect red color. And I'm using a very small blending brush from Simon Says Stamp to help me color in the berries. Because the holes are quite small, I want to make sure that I use some very fine bristles to get into that area. So now I'll remove this stencil to reveal the pattern that we have so far, and it's looking beautiful. At this point, we need to add some paste. You could go either way with this. You could do something a little bit more glittery, or you could do something with more of a classic matte finish, such as that gold on the left. Both of those are paste that I had from the Crafter's Workshop, but any gold paste will work for this technique. I went for the glitter version on this project, which looks fantastic, and it allowed me to get a really nice, beautiful finish on the bows. I'm going to fold my Stampin' Stencil mat a little bit to help me peel off the paper so that way I can set that aside to dry. Once it dried, I brought in the Modern Teardrops die set. We're going to use one of these panels to cut out a nice shape for our background. I'm going to use a size larger to mat a nice bit of champagne cardstock behind it. This is going to give a nice framing around our background, and it will tie really well with the color of glitter paste that I used to create the bows. Next, I'm going to work on my sentiment. So this is the Fanciful Joy die set from Simon Says Stamp. This is an oldie but goodie, and I really love the font on this set. So I'm going to cut the sentiment itself from white cardstock, but then I'm cutting the shadow layer from some red. This is going to allow me to layer up the white sentiment on top of that red cardstock for the shadow layer, which will give not only some separation from the greeting and the background, but it will also add that really nice pop of red color to the sentiment, which I think really stands out on top of this card. I'm adhering my sentiment together with Simon Says Stamp Positively Perfect Craft Glue. This is a nice thin liquid adhesive, perfect for delicate die cuts. And I'm just going to layer these pieces up onto my sentiment. Bringing in this Graceful Trees stamp set from CZ Design and Simon Says Stamp, another oldie but goodie, I'm going to use this sentiment that says to you and yours. This is going to finish off the joy greeting really nicely. I'm stamping this onto some dark green cardstock. This is Midnight Green. And I'm going to sprinkle that with a little bit of white embossing powder so that way I can heat set that on top of the dark colored cardstock. This will stand out really well. I did trim that down into a simple little strip, and then I'm going to adhere my background onto a card base that I've made from some green cardstock. This is a top folding card base. I do love top folding card bases for portrait cards. Just the way they stand, it stands really, really elegantly, and I think it's a great way to finish off a portrait card. I'm going to adhere my sentiments onto my card with foam squares, but I'm using thin foam squares for the sub-sentiment, and then I'll use 3D foam squares for the joy. That's just giving some varying levels of dimension on the card, which really adds some depth to the project. We're almost done, but the last thing I wanted to do was to embellish it with a bit of sequins. You can't go wrong with extra bling on the holidays, and these marshmallow sequins, which are new from the Simon Says Stamp Happy Camper release, were the perfect little bit of sparkle on this card that didn't take away from the background, but when they catch the light, it really accents everything nicely. And then check out how they sparkle in the light. Isn't that beautiful? So this shows you how you can use the Festive Bough pattern stencils to create a beautiful background for your card projects. All you need to do is add a sentiment on top and a few embellishments and you are good to go. The fun thing is that you could change up the colors from what I used to something a little bit different. And to inspire you with that, I'm going to share with you 2 different color palettes for the Festive Swag stencils. Remember, the Festive Swag stencils are the exact same pattern from the Festive Bough. This is just a single image and it's larger. But this might give you some ideas on how you can utilize those same colors on the background version of the stencil. So I'm going to use the coordinating die to cut a couple of these out from some white cardstock. Then I'm going to adhere them onto my craft tacky mat, and then we're going to work on adding the stenciling. These stencils are a little bit different from the background version because this one works with a die. I wanted to make sure that you had something easy for lining up. So if you notice, there is etching around the edges of the design, which is showing you the edge of the die cut. So the best way to work with this is to die cut first, then stencil, because then you can use the etching on the stencil to help you line it up with the die. So that's what I'm going to do as I work on ink blending through each one of these layers. I'm going to start first with spring. This is a bright spring-like green, but it is a very minty color, so I thought it would work really well for the holidays. So I went ahead and used that for the holly, and then I'm going to use some teal, which I know that's a little bit unique. That's going to be the perfect color for these sprig leaves that are hanging down from the sides. Then I'm going to go to Lucky, which is more of a Kelly green, and that's going to allow me to color in the pine boughs. Finally, I'm going to use Princess, which is a rainbow splash ink color, and color in the berries. So this pink color is going to look super cool with these bright greens and little touches of teal. For a bit more of a classic spin on it, I am going to add a little bit of red to the bow, just so that way we maintain some of that holiday color palette. So we're coming together with our first round of blending. I really love how this one turned out. It's really pretty and has a fun festive feel to it. Now let's try a different color combination. So I'm going to use Raindrop for the pine boughs. I'll use red for the bow as I did for the other stenciling. But then I'm going to do something different for the berries. We're gonna go teal with those. So I'm gonna use Seafoam for the berries, which is, I think, really fun. And then we'll come back in with spring for this one as well to color in the holly. I really liked how that color looked. Finally, our last bit of blending was to add a little bit of teal to those sprig leaves. And again, I'm using Seafoam for that. So just slight variation to the colors. But here I'm going to do something special to those little sprig leaves. I didn't remove the stencil yet. I'm going to apply some glitter paste through that stencil, so that way when this dries, those leaves will have a frosty, sparkly finish, which I think is really fun. It's a little bit unexpected, and it just makes the stenciling a little bit unique. Another product I designed earlier this year was the Pretty Bows die set from Simon Says Stamp. I'm going to cut this from some red metallic cardstock, and we're going to glue these on top of the bows that are in the Festive Swag stencil. The bow is exactly the same, however, the ones for the dies are a tiny bit larger. But I wanted to be able to layer the bow die on top of this because I think it makes it feel extra dimensional. So I had the red ink blending, and then I just used a red metallic cardstock for the die cut layer, so it really blends in nice, but it's got that 3D feel because I'm just gluing the center of the bow onto my die cut, and then that's going to give me this really cool finish on these swag pieces. Now we need to turn them into finished projects. So why don't we first start with the tag. I'm going to use the new Simon Says Stamp and CZ Design Nested Tags dies. This is a remake of an older tag set that she had created, but there's more sizes now, which is fantastic. And I'm also going to use her new Simple Stars stencil. This is the perfect star pattern for backdrops. I love the size of them and the spacing between them because you can also add other things between the stars too, which is fun. Because my tag is a teal base, I wanted to be able to have some light blue stars. I'm going to use oxide inks to be able to ink blend over top. Because oxide inks have pigment in them, that's going to actually show up on these dark colored cardstocks, which looks fantastic. I also wanted to add some splatter because splatter always looks like stars in my opinion, or snow. And this new Simon Says Stamp Positively Perfect white splatter is perfect on top of dark colored cardstocks, ink blending, you name it. So while that was drying, I'm going to add a sub-sentiment, again using those graceful trees. This time I'm going to use the Peace and Joy sentiment, but I'm going to stamp it onto some red cardstock. I'm using embossing ink as I did for the other sentiment. I'm going to be stamping this with white embossing powder as well. So once I've gone ahead and heat set that, then I can use the coordinating die to cut it out. I love having coordinating dies for sentiments because it allows you to pop up the greetings off of your project and you don't have to worry about fussy cutting, which is so nice. To adhere everything together, I'm going to attach the Festive swag along the top portion of my tag. And I know it's a little bit bigger than the tag, but I love that when you are creating tags, you don't have to worry about the card going into an envelope. This is something that's going to go on top of a gift, so you're really not constrained to the dimensions of the base piece. So I love that I can let things hang off the sides. I am adding a few little star confetti pieces and also some Simon Says stamp dazzling gems in the clear finish to accent my design. These are going to add just a little bit of sparkle in between those stenciled stars. And then there is a reinforcer that comes with the Nested Tags die set. I used that, cut it from some red cardstock and glued that along the top of my tag, and then tied a bit of teal ribbon across the top. That's going to complete my tag project. I love how the bold colors of the tag offset all of the light stenciling that we have on our Festive swag, and then we've got that festive pop of red too, which is fantastic. Now we got to take that other Festive swag and turn that into a project. So I'm going to make a card for this one, and I'm using an A2 stenciling mask from Simon Says Stamp to ink blend a little bit of this pink color, Princess, from Rainbow Splash onto this cardstock, which is Simon Says Stamp 120 pound white cardstock. I'm ink blending most of the ink in the center, which looks a little funny right now, but trust me, it's going to work out perfectly. Then I'm going to also die cut a frame using this A2 frames set from Simon Says Stamp. I want this to fit within that stenciled area, and I'm going to cut it from some silver cardstock. So that's going to go right in the middle of the stenciled area. But now I want to add a little bit of trimming around the stenciling. So I'm going to bring in a Postage die. This one happens to be from Pinkfresh Studios, but you can use any Postage die that you have in your stash that works for an A2 size card. I'm going to die cut this piece of cardstock with the stenciling on it using this Postage stamp die set. And then that's giving me a little bit of a border around my stenciling, which just looks really cool. I'm going to also stamp a background using this Simon Says Stamp Swiss Dots stamp set. There are other greetings in this set too, which are great for every day, but the pattern is what I was looking for. I love the dot pattern. So those little dots I stamped with some teal ink, and then I'm popping up my postage panel on top of that. I'm going to glue my little silver frame right down in the middle of my card panel, and that's going to give a nice bit of framing around the swag piece that I'm going to layer on top of that. So I used liquid glue to adhere the frame, but then the swag is going to get popped up. So there's going to be that varying level of dimension on the card. These foam squares are from Simon Says Stamp, and they are the white version 3D. This is going to allow me to get a really nice pop off of the card panel. I did stamp another sentiment from the Graceful Trees set. However, I wanted it split into two. So I just went ahead and trimmed it apart after die cutting. So that allowed me to put the word Christmas along the bottom, and then I put the word Merry on an angle across the top. I love that. I think it really made this card look super cool. And it's a great example of how, even though you may have a sentiment that cuts out with the coordinating die, you always have the power to tweak it because you've got scissors and you can change it and make it look exactly how you want, which is always nice. I'm using a few of the new Simon Says Stamp Star Bright sequins. These are so cute and tiny, and they are slightly holographic, so they really catch the light of whatever color they're paired with, and I love how they mixed with the pink colors of this card. So there we have it, 3 different projects using the Festive series from Simon Says Stamp, which included the Festive Bough pattern, background stencils, and then also the Festive Swag stencil set. I hope you were inspired by all the projects that you saw today, not only how to use them, but also maybe you got some ideas for some color combinations. I did something traditional with the Joy card and then went a little bit kind of middle of the road with the tag, and then definitely non-traditional for the pink Merry Christmas card. So somewhere across the video, I hope that you got some ideas, were inspired, and that you'll try them out for yourself. If you would like to participate in the Simon Says Stamp Happy Camper Release blog hop, I hope you will. Please go on over to my blog to get more information about the blog hop, including the next stop, and also additional information about the free gift offer. I will be back very soon with more inspiration for all of you, but I appreciate that you have watched to the end of this video, so thank you so very much. I'll see you again very soon, but until then, I hope you have a wonderful day.